Welcome to Prinny Complaints with today's topic, the 14 content problem. Now, 14 has lost some of its player base when compared to the numbers during Endwalker, even now during downtime. And a big part of the player base has said that the main problem is the apparent lack of meaningful mid-core content, combined with their frustration of current job design. This is a complex topic, and I don't want to paint the whole picture in one video. So I start with the individual puzzle pieces to figure out what's actually going on. Now, before we can start to look at what the real problem is, we first have to define what's casual, what's midcore, and what's hardcore content. Now, casual content is a part of the game that everyone has to beat in order to progress through the story. So, dungeons, trials, the story missions. Then there's, of course, a non-combat content, like cosmic exploration. That's also part of the casual content, which is really well hidden for being casual content. I would need to look up a guide right now in order to unlock it. I'm not interested in it, but if I wanted to, I had to look up a guide. And I can tell you, a big part of the casual players aren't looking at guides. So that's already a huge problem. Now, there's also the part with normal raids. I also consider normal raids to be casual content. And again, you have to know where the NPC is that unlocks normal raids. Not everyone is going like, a blue check marker. Let me just unlock that. Big part of the player base just does the story. And then does the dailies. And doesn't really know that there is a lot more after that. Maybe if they look in the patch notes. Maybe. But I think the game should make it clearer for the casual player base where they find different other parts of content. Now midcore is primarily, and midcore and hardcore is primarily the battle content that needs both strategy and team play. There's of course a certain blurred line where ends midcore, where starts hardcore. That's different for every player. For some, even the start of Savage is hardcore. For others, like I would consider maybe the third fight of each Savage tier to be hardcore, and everything before that is still midcore. So that's what I would define as casual, midcore, hardcore. So if we go by that, then midcore players get around 7 extremes. And like I said, considering how much of you Savage you consider midcore, 3 to 6 fights per expansion. So 10 to 13 fights per expansion for midcore players. That's okay. It could be better, but it's okay. Now hardcore players get all that plus the rest of Savage and the ultimates, so hardcore players get automatically more. So what's the actual content problem of 14? It's the casual content, and let me explain that. And new patch releases, right? With a new dungeon. New dungeon, nice. Okay, so how it's different than the dungeon before, where it got a boss with shiny new animations. Yeah, sure. So what are its mechanics? A donut AoE, point blank AoE, a line AoE, riveting gameplay. I personally believe that outside of experiments like space exploration, there has been effectively no new content for the casual player base since Heavensward. Some of the new trials are fine, but it's clearly not enough. At some point, a casual player has two options: start doing harder content or leave the game. Now, everyone who does harder content right now was once at exactly that point. and why for some the jump is, you know, easy as going for a walk. For others, it was a mental nightmare. It was a mental nightmare for me. I once played, like when I started, I played during a When We Were Born for 4 months. Due to financial reasons, I did not want to pay for the subscription back then, and I was content with just, you know, playing through the story. Thought it was fine. And then during Stormblood, I actively started playing things, but still on a casual level. And I did not want it to jump into harder content back then. And I got really bored of dungeons. Like, holy shit, is it boring? So what did I do? Answer is I dropped the game. I played during Stormblood through the story, and after I played through the story, I was done. No, wait. I didn't even finish the story. I played until the last trial, and I did not finish the last trial until like almost 2 years later, shortly before Endwalker released. No, during Endwalker, I was encouraged by someone to try extremes and then also savage content, and that made me really fall in love with this game. I was like, wow, there's so much more, and it's not that bad to get into it. If you have someone who helps you get into this part of content, like the part of the game. And like I said, it also really depends on who you are. Because for most casual players, what they will do is they will go, okay, I want to do the new extreme. Like I unlocked it, someone told me it's super, I can go there to that NPC and unlock the new extreme. Okay, so what does he do? He goes, okay, Duty Finder Recollection Extreme, join. And then he waits for hours on end, finding no one, because no one is doing extremes like that. If he finds a group, then it's probably a group with 3 mentors who are now raging at him because he used the Duty Finder to search for an extreme. Now that's encouraging. Maybe, perhaps, just maybe, some of them tells him, hey, you should really use Party Finder in order to get into extreme. Okay. So you lost already a big part of players at that point, but some might say, okay, fine, I just use Party Finder and then I can do the extreme. Then I can finally get the shiny new mount that I saw many other players use while I was doing Fates or any other stuff. So they go into Party Finder, like Party Finder, and they see this visual overload. What the hell does all this means? I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. What the hell is usual cheesy one? What the hell means Angry Bird? What is Mario Kart? Why the hell does it say supports on D? What is D? And you know, most casual players don't. They still think healers are tanks are DPS. They don't consider healer and tank to be support. So it's all terminology that's just thrown at them. So we go back to the problem from before, where they like have 2 options. Option 1, leave the game. Option 2, do harder content. Harder content, well, they won't they won't start with that, considering seeing that, having just had one of the worst experiences of like playing a video game. So then we will go with option 2, leave the game. And over time, this problem becomes bigger and bigger because one expansion releases, another expansion releases, and you have to do all these dungeons in order to keep up with the story, right? You start with the When We Were Born, it's already a slog. You go to Heavensward, already a slog. Stormblood, slog. Shadowringers, Well, the story is good, but it's still kind of a slog to go to all these dungeons, especially since they are not all that different. Yeah, you get new abilities, wow, but it's not enough. So, what actually needs to happen in order to get the game into a better and more stable position is that I think there are three problems, and if two of them are addressed, like any of the two of them, then the game would already be in a much more stable place. Sorry for that. So the first thing is better design of dungeons, like making them more interesting. Would be one thing to keep the more casual player base playing. Of course, it would do nothing for the midcore or hardcore players. But there are two other things. The second is, of course, there needs to be a clearer direction for the casual players who might not look up guides on the internet, where they can unlock like normal raids and maybe there should also be something in between normal raids and extremes. And then the third, of course, and the most important, the better onboarding for casuals into harder content. A tutorial for the party finder is much needed. A better way to... Now, the devs have said they are trying to give players better options to communicate strategies inside the game. But I think this point is so important. There needs to be done so much so that people don't have to look up guides on the internet. I think this is really, at least for extremes, that strategies can be clearly explained inside the game. Of course, a video is always preferred, but again, you have to recognize that a big part of the casual player base of the game does not consume content on the internet for the game they're playing. They're just playing the game. They just want to have fun. They just come home from work and they want to be entertained. And entertaining can be, like, it can be fun and entertaining to be a bit challenged, but most people will stop at that point where it's slightly challenging. Not a lot of people say, hey, I wanna get better, hey, I wanna pass. Some, yes. I also, like I said, I fell in love in this game when doing harder content, and I also like trying to get my damage numbers higher and try to get better at a fight, try to go through an extreme without dying, then trying to optimize the healing in it. Like, all of that is super fun, but that's a minority of people who play the game. So like I said, these three things, better casual content, like better dungeon design, then a better way for casual players to find different content, and third of all, a better onboarding for casual players into harder battle content. If these things, like if two of these things would be done, then amazing. If all three, even better. And now many people will say, hey, but that's like the game suffered heavily during Dawn Trail, and that can't be the only reason. Like I said, the problem is more complex, but I think one of the big reason why, especially right now, the game has a big problem is that during Shadowbringers and even during Endwalker, like Endwalker, the story was a bit more divisive than during Shadowbringers. Shadowbringers everyone loved. Endwalker was, like, I say 70 to 30%. And now with Dawn Trail, where it was really divisive, the devs effectively put the game onto a pillar that is very volatile, and that's the story pillar. And you cannot expect, no matter how good your writing team is, every story might have a blunder, especially a really long one, especially in an MMO. Like, look even at WoW. WoW had, like, World of Warcraft had some really great story expansions from what I've heard, and then others which fell completely flat. But people still played the game. Why? Because the game wasn't just the story, there was more than that. And this game also, like 14 isn't just a story, it's not a story-driven MMO. I don't even know why like people came to that idea after Shadowbringers, because Shadowbringers, yes, had a really great story. But it's not just that. Like, the battle content is fun. It's really good. And Square should make sure that, of course, the story can be a part of the construct, but it shouldn't be the only pillar that holds the game up. And for that, they need to make sure that everyone has at least a chance of getting all the content. And to make sure that even the easiest content has a little of meat on the bones, and it isn't just the same old slog you've been doing since 5, 6, 7 years. And I can tell you, like, even now where I started doing extremes and doing Savage, the thing that I hate the most, right, is this. The roulette. And I'm currently doing, for the relic weapon, of course, roulette. And I hate it. I hate everything about it. It's so boring. It's... And it doesn't even have anything to do with, like, that I mostly play healer. Right? Even if I play tank. Like, even if I go warrior and go into a dungeon. It's still so boring. If I go DPS, yeah, wow, I'm doing my rotation while mostly holding W in order to move forward. I don't know. Dungeon design really needs to change. I really do believe that. And with that, we basically come to the next part, which is job design, but that will be for the next video. So stay tuned.